Hey, Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, double honors to the elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutation, as always, to the elect. All the brothers pushing this work in sincerity and truth. This is Shalom to you, right? To the elect again, Shalom. This is Brother Thamaya from GMS Toronto, coming at you with another video. Here to talk about the hip hop music, right? It's lost another soldier. But this young Jake by the name of Foolio. Fool, right? Fool is in his name, and that's what he lived his life as, right? A fool, right? He was part of a well-known gang in, I don't know if it's South Florida or if it's in Miami, Florida. I don't know, but somewhere down there, they had their whole gangs and gang rivalry, and they made music that portray that, right? Fast money, fast life, and that's what hip hop is all about, right? I don't know how people always talk about, oh, in the beginning, they said something positive, but then when you look at the beginning, the roots of this so-called hip hop game or the music, you see all these the forefathers of hip hop. They're all dressed weird, right? They're all dressed in they're all dressed as the village people, right? Very tight clothing, you know. And then it led from that to the street stuff, right? Because even in the 80s, you have KRS-One and those guys, they were talking about some gangster shit too, right? So this hip hop music was never really anything righteous, right? You have albums like Criminal Minded, you have Ice-T talking about street life, right? That has nothing, to do with righteousness. Some people always say, "Oh, in the beginning, this and that was different." No, it wasn't. It was not different. It was always the music of the gangs. If you ever sit down and think about it, because in the 80s, right, the 70s and 80s, New York City, California, all those other places, I'm just going to deal with these two, the West Coast and the East Coast, because that's where the hip hop was more prevalent, mainly in the East, right? All these guys were part of gangs, or they knew people who were part of gangs. What was the main thing in New York? Drug dealing in the 80s, right? Jay-Z always talked about 88. Everyone's always talking about 86, 87, 88, right? 84, right? It's pretty much the so-called black community, Israelites, got infested with drugs, right? And who were the one putting the drugs in there? Yes, you guessed it, right? The elites, because they wanted to snuff you out and have your life be a living hell, which it was, right? But anyway, the music that they were listening to back then, it wasn't gospel music. I tell you that. It was always hip hop music, right? And all these guys always portray something that they're not. Most of them were like, they had the big chains. Who wore the big chains? Well, the drug dealers wore the big chains, right? The 5-finger rings. Who wore that? It was the drug dealers. Big Daddy Kane and all those guys were emulating the drug dealers, the guys that they saw on the streets, the guys that they grew up with, right? So it went hand in hand. The drug dealers wanted to be hip hop stars, and the hip hop stars wanted to be drug dealers. So they pretty much went hand in hand. That's what the music was like that in the 80s and 90s, right? Fast forward to now, I would say the 2000s, mid 2010s, right? Chicago and all those guys, right? They had the drill music, right? How many lives did hip hop claim from 2010 to today? That's 14 years, right? That's 14 years of bloodshed, man. That's 14 years of murder, unsolved murders, right? Families living in hell with pain due to the fact that they have lost a son who was a GD or a BD, right? Same neighborhood. These guys are just murdering each other, and they'll make songs about it, right? So how has hip hop contributed to the so-called black community? Yes, by murdering your children. I personally believe that this music should be banned, right? Every time I went on YouTube and I saw like one of those diss songs, I always flag it. I always flag those music videos, man, of a little Dirk talking about shooting people in the head, and this idiot had a video portraying that, right? He had a song. His last song was about that, I think, a couple of months ago, right? And this is all a reflection of music. That's what the scripture says. The daughters of music shall be brought low, and not just daughters. It goes to sons also, right? These boys were just making music about murdering their own brothers, their neighbors, right? The scripture talks about not murdering a neighbor, right? It's supposed to be brotherly, but I get it. We're under the curses, and this is the main fuel in the engine of hip hop is the music, right? And then they're using you Jakes to pretty much push that out there, and now you're seeing a new generation of teenagers who grew up on the drill music and grew up on the mid 2010s, seeing your Lil Durk, your FBG Duck, your what do you call that guy again? KI, FBG Butter, all these guys, right? Melly, 451 Melly, and all these guys, right? You're seeing young boys who grew up watching all these guys and hearing about the documentaries that they put on YouTube and how much these guys were grim reapers and how much they were murderers, right? And you're seeing that new surgence of generation that's coming in right now, the 14-year-olds, the 15-year-olds, the 16-year-olds. They're doing the same things that these guys once saw on YouTube, right, or on Twitter, right? It's going on right over here in Toronto, man. You're seeing 14-year-olds rolling up to parks, shooting up soccer games. You know, we're seeing so-called rappers, Toronto rappers, get involved in gangs. Right? How many of them already got put to death over the pandemic? Right before the pandemic, that Smoke Dog guy got shot. He's out of here. Right? And the rest of them, one of them got lit up at a shisha lounge. Got shot 14, 15 times. Now he's lit up in his mom's taking care of him now. He can't walk. He'll never be able to have a family again. Nothing. Right? So this is what hip hop has caused. It's caused nothing but destruction. It's like a Tasmanian devil. Remember that cartoon? Right? That's what hip hop is. Everywhere it goes, it just leaves a trail of dead Israelites. Everywhere. You go to the UK, they have the UK drill. What are they doing over there? They're pretty much using the knives on each other, right? That's what the UK is known for, knives, right? And before the UK drill took off, I watched a documentary about how these guys, they were African gangs versus Somalian gangs versus Caribbean gangs. Right, so this was always a part of this music. Gang culture was always a part of this music. It was never pure, right? Like I mentioned, KRS-One and all those guys. What's his name? The one that made the Ill Street Blues record. Ill Street Blues. What's his name again, man? Talk to the tight tongue with a lisp. Cool G Rap. All those guys were talking about gangster shit, man. They weren't going into details like, oh, I did this, but they're like, oh, they're telling the story where someone I know did this, someone did that to this person, or, you know, or they're pretty much trying to act like they're the one who did it, right? So this was always a music of negativity, and everyone always talk about, oh, let's do it for this culture. Hip hop music is not a culture; it's a genre of music. You dummies, right? Coming close to being a religion. Because y'all go to stage shows and worship these guys on stage, right? Y'all also have a god, whether you know it or not. It's Baphomet. That's the god of the industry, right? So hip hop music is trash. It's garbage, and it's the death music. Remember back in the 80s, 70s, and 60s, when you had your rock and roll, right? You had your thrash metal, your heavy metal, your punk rock. What was that music known for? What was it? What were the parents calling it? Devil music, right? Which it was. All those men were part of. They were part of cults. They were part of brotherhood. Just like how now you're seeing hip hop being a part of a brotherhood, right? They made that transition over into switching the guards when they made that Aerosmith and Run DMC video, the Walk This Way video. I think that was just a coincidence that the hip hop and rock and roll did a collaboration, and next thing you know, right after that, MTV started playing these so-called black artists' music videos, and slowly they started integrating hip hop in there, slowly making these white children accept seeing you Negroes on TV, right? It was done strategically, and it was done gradually, right? Gradualism. That's what they used, because they wanted to be, they wanted to have you generation of children to be degenerates, right? They wanted you to be a thug. They wanted your daughters to be whores, and that's what we're seeing right now. So that's what hip hop music is being used for, and it's working. It has worked, and this is the last stages of it, right? The last stages is always death, you know? Before that, you had Trina and all those girls, Lil' Kim, with the sex, the provocative stuff, and, you know, the overly masculine male and the overly sexualized female, right? The overly thug male and the overly prostitution being pushed, right? A hustler, a female hustler, right? Which goes back to the word hussy, which goes back to the word of prostitute. That's what they pretty much had your daughters following, and now you're seeing the byproduct of that right now, right? This is your Sexy Reds, your Sexy Reds. Who else is out there? You Meg Thee Stallion, all these weirdos, right? You're seeing these things take a blistering effect on the minds of these children, this new generation, right? Even us, right? Even us, we took a hit by following these guys, listening to their damn music, right? Us in high school wanted to be like Cameron and all those guys. Hey man, music is very powerful, right? Even at its lowest core right now, right? You're seeing it take a toll on these children's mind. It's warping it into something that it's very destructive, right? Because music can be used to help to heal people, right? You have you're using music right now, classical music, to heal people with dementia. So if it can do that, what can it do to a mind that's young, right? A mind that's supposed to be well instructed by, you know, his or her parents through Yahweh Shemel Shai, right? If it can use to be healed, if it can use to be a healing agent, it can also be used for destruction. And that's what you're seeing. You're seeing hip hop music being used as a tool of destruction, right? And that's how the elites, that's how they choose to get this new generation to be dysfunctional and have these marriages to be out of order, get these wives to be out of order, get these husbands to be effeminate and soft, opposed to being strong, right? And have the women being pretty much having that masculine energy on her, right? And have the male have that feminine energy on him, right? We're seeing that right now, and that's being used through the music. And it's like, yeah, we're seeing it being used through the music. Where am I right now? Okay. So this place is over, right? The elites are making sure, and the music is just one aspect of it, right? You can go into many ways in which different tools that these elites are using, but using the entertainment and the things that you like to program your children and for them to be degenerates. Shalom.